Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Nick, and we are bringing this episode directly to you. With us, we have Greg.
Directly to you.
Mike.
Never mind the blocks.
And our first special guest all the way from the Nerd Extravaganza podcast, Tom.
Please understand.
It couldn't have been more appropriate. And, you know, usually, folks, I like to have a lighter subject on hand, but I think it's best that we bring up the passing of the former president of Nintendo, Satoru Iwata. So, man, guys, like, how did this hit you guys when this happened? It just, man, it really took me off guard.
Yeah, I actually, at first I thought it was kind of, maybe an internet hoax, something you see. I didn't even really know he was that sick leading into it, but then when I started seeing it in more places, like, wow, he actually passed. When I looked it up, when I saw how old he was, it was even more shocking. I mean, only 55.
I also thought it was a hoax because, people post these kind of things online all the time about this person or that person dying, and I had no idea he even had health problems. And, basically for me, it was like one minute Nintendo was sort of regrouping and trying to come back from the failure of the Wii U. And I air quote that as a fanboy. I guess from a business standpoint, maybe it is a failure. But one minute it looked like that, they were regrouping and he was going to lead the next charge, and then the next thing he had passed away. I had no idea that he was even ill. So, and yeah, at such a young age, that's quite a tragedy.
It was truly stunning. I mean, how could we've known, like, this? People get older, they eventually pass. You just when you God, this is sounds so fanboy, but when you idolize like a certain company and the people that run it to a certain extent, you don't let these things cross your mind and what it leads to this company. So the point of this episode is we're gonna go over some of the great achievements that Iwata had in his tenure at Nintendo, and then maybe even look at who's gonna be next, who's gonna take over after him. And then after that, we're gonna talk about maybe our personal opinion on our favorite achievement that he's accomplished in the company. So I wanted to kick it off with him as a developer for HAL and Nintendo. He localized the program for Nintendo of America on Dragon Warrior. I think that was really huge. We wouldn't be seeing the blue slime today, maybe, if it wasn't for him. Tom, you had a story behind Dragon Warrior, didn't you?
Yeah, it's personally huge for me because the blue slime wouldn't have nearly the place in its heart it has for me if not for him. That localization, I'm sure he worked hard on the localization specifically for this purpose. That localization meant that I got Dragon Warrior as a game for free. Nintendo Power, the old magazine, did a promotion where you could get the Dragon Warrior game if you did a subscription. So if I were to walk up to my dad like, Dad, pay money so I can subscribe to a video game magazine, the default answer would be no, because my dad was very frugal. But when I made the pitch, hey, here's a free game, I won't bother you for a game for like weeks if you do this. He couldn't pass it up. So I got this subscription to the magazine, and I got my first, what we now call JRPG. And Dragon Warrior / Dragon Quest has remained one of my favorite series to this day.
Excellent. I can't even fathom, like, you got a free game? That is
kind of mind-blowing. Yeah. I suspect it was a little later in the game's life cycle, but it was new to me, and I loved it. So it was wonderful.
And speaking of JRPGs, another one that was pretty much saved was his work into Mother 2. I mean, were you guys aware of his skills as a developer? Like, apparently he was very gifted in his work.
Yeah, I had no idea he even developed any games until he died. I had no idea he had his hand in Balloon Fight and Earthbound. All those games, that was all new information for me.
Didn't he create Kirby while he was at HAL?
Yes, I believe
so. A little more than just having his hands in it.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, when he used to, I saw certain pictures where notes were being made and he would draw. Like, he had a picture of him Miyamoto and another Japanese developer, and he would draw just a picture of Kirby underneath, like doing different little things. And I thought that was very interesting before his coming around. Even as a corporate director, he made his way up to corporate director. He was involved in 2 launches, being the Game Boy Advance and the GameCube. I mean, those are huge, especially the Game Boy Advance. I mean, that kind of keeps him back into the Super NES realm, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He also ended up saving Super Smash Bros. Melee. It was looking like it wasn't ready to develop, or wasn't ready for release, rather. And they were gunning for the holiday season. He dove in there and spent countless hours like reworking the game and fixing it in time to come out at a holiday release. And that ended up being one of the biggest Smash Brother games to date. I think the one for the Wii U is great, but I mean, Melee still has the strongest hold as far as if you're looking to play competitively.
Just his development prowess saved these games. Like, he got in there. It was like a movie, you know, where he's like staring at the screen typing and there's tense music playing. Like, he went in and coded and saved the day. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, and that wasn't the first time he's
impressive.
done it. Yeah, he's done it for other games as well. I believe he did it for Earthbound, and it's just... Yeah, he's really put in some work. Like, you know, when you see these big suits and you don't know where their background came from, you just kind of dismiss them. You're like, oh, well, you know, you don't know anything about games. You're just a businessman. But that guy came from the inside out. He lived the Japanese dream. I don't know. Like, he really put in the work and put in the time, and he rose to the top.
I think you can't really put a value on the importance of just having that background coming up as a developer. So even when he got to the higher up parts of Nintendo, where he wasn't directly working on games, when these games would get into trouble, unlike maybe a CEO that was more business minded, here's a guy who understood the video game creation process, and he would maybe give him more time, give some advice, and you can't really tell how influential that might have been in countless games.
That might account for during some of the Nintendo Directs, him actually using the words like, we need more time to perfect the development. Like, you know, typically you're just suit type who doesn't know anything about technical stuff. But just, you know, I've seen movies, all you gotta do is code faster. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to conjure up the montage scenes where the tech person just, you know, types and...
Yeah.
And if we could harken back to last week's discussion on the pre-orders, you know, talking about unfinished games coming out, Nintendo always is one that delays their game, and while it might be frustrating, they always deliver perfect products on launch.
Right. You don't get Batman for the PC, for example.
Which we had a lengthy discussion on last week. Be sure to check out the pre-order episode that we did previously. It just goes to show, like, from what you were saying earlier, Tom, how when he says you need to give us a little more time, normally when you hear that from any other company, it just makes you want to roll your eyes, because it's like, all right, yeah, sure, like, do you even know what's going on? I bet you he does know what's going on, and he knows that you need the time. You can't just rush these games out, you know. It's just you got to take your time, and you got to put it out, and you got to put in the best work that you can to make it work. So
yeah,
clearly that's what he had in mind when he would make those statements. And
agreed.
And of course, like, with this going on, however he's been handling these particular situations, it's made him rise even further, to the point where he became the president of Nintendo, where he ended up seeing the launch. I believe he had his hands directly on the DS, which is like maybe the godsend of like Nintendo. Like, whether it be the original DS up to the new 3DS, that thing just sells like crazy, sells like hotcakes. It's just out of control. Like, how much money it justifies the money printing GIF. Like, it's just it's out of control how big that system was.
It's a cash cow for sure. I mean, I'm sure when the shareholders are like, hey man, this Wii U isn't doing as great. Let me remind you what we have over here. They just bring in a giant sized 3DS and just milk the catch teats on it. We're good.
Rightfully so. And even on top of that, he even was there for the launch of the Wii U. And that was even he was there for the Wii U, but he was there for I meant the original Wii.
The Wii, yeah, which was
you could forget that.
yeah, it was an unqualified success. I mean, we could talk about that, but yeah, I mean, they made a boatload of money on that, right? They made a profit on every system they sold, didn't they?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ironically, I think that's one of the last times you would have needed a pre-order.
Man, everyone doubted me. I went and I got in the pre-order line, and my friends were like, "Why? And then people were wanting to buy it off me after the fact. Yeah, it was. In retrospect, I, as a gamer, got less out of it than my friends who wanted it as the trendy gadget of that year. But it was an unqualified success simply because it really appealed to those people, right?
Yeah, and that was the thing about that system. It went beyond being another home console. It ended up being like the trendy gadget of the year, as you said.
It was a cultural phenomenon. I mean, when you're leading into every single news, well, when Nintendo is running the news broadcast probably since the first time since the 80s, I mean, it's that same type of deal. They kind of recreated the same hype when the NES dropped in the US.
That's a great comparison, and you know what? You're right. A lot of people who didn't go on to be gamers had the NES in their household. It was a household gadget to be had, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, my grandmother bought me one in 1987. I was born in 1986. I couldn't even play the thing, but I had one.
It's the must-have gadget, man.
Without a doubt. And how are we going to hear about these things without I believe he was one of the first to be in a Nintendo Direct style presentation. Remember when we got worried that they weren't going to have a conference at E3 anymore? And then now they just do these Directs. They do one, every other month?
Yep.
And it kept us posted on everything that they were doing. It goes to, I want to kind of go on, I guess, a slight rant here. Now, in retrospect, you gotta feel bad for the guy for, he was probably on his deathbed when he was receiving all the negative criticism from this past E3. And oh my gosh, and he was able to even put out a message saying does anybody remember what he said exactly?
Was it in reaction to Metroid sucks or something?
It was with that and everything else, where are the games for the Wii U, you guys aren't catering to us, and then he said, please be on the lookout. We're working as hard as we can, basically. And the fact that he had to deliver that message and then shortly after pass away, doesn't it it should make those people that said that feel kind of shitty. I mean, nobody knew nobody knew this was going to happen.
Right. They didn't know, but it puts in perspective your dickishness and overreaction. I mean, to what a video game company's doing. I mean, in the constellation of things that matter in life, this is way, 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 way out at Pluto level or something. This doesn't matter. Solar system, not constellation. You get my point.
Yeah.
Agreed. I mean, the people that are actually trolling and bitching about all that, the sad thing is they're not going to bat an eyelash. They're not going to care about what their words may have meant to him. However vitriol-laced they were, they're just going to say, oh, well, it is what it is. They're not going to learn anything from this.
Right, no perspective is going to be gained, yeah.
For better or worse, under his tenure as president of Nintendo, I mean, he has bucked pretty much every video game trend. They don't view E3 the same way that PlayStation and Xbox do, and you even see with his consoles, he's not trying to really compete with PlayStation or Microsoft. He's trying to do his own thing, and just the innovations that you see in the DS, the Wii, the Wii U. I mean, people might even kind of forget how innovative the DS as a handheld is, with the stylus and the touchpad and the microphone, all the stuff that little handheld can do. And he kind of takes that approach. Their E3 isn't their big thing because they have a Nintendo Direct, so they're only showing you what you're going to be playing in the most recent time. They're not worried about what you're going to be playing in 2017, this way that Microsoft or PlayStation is showing that off.
I think if they just made a little more emphasis at E3, take it a little bit, this sounds bad, maybe take it a little bit more seriously than they kind of did.
They're stuck in their ways. They're this is the way we're doing it, and whether you get it or not, we're not going to change. And I don't think E3 is one of those events where people who aren't following the gaming industry daily are tuning into that, and they don't understand that Nintendo has a different philosophy, so they're not getting, when they watching it Nintendo's E3 show, they're not getting why you're not seeing something similar to PlayStation or Microsoft, where the hardcore Nintendo fanboys get it. They still might be disappointed, in games that are shown, but at least they understand maybe why Nintendo goes that route. They might be frustrated they don't try to compete with the other two, but they at least have a better understanding of it.
Well said, Mike. And it's. I mean, you know what? I'm just gonna drop it because it's just gonna get me upset. But I mean, and that's only a fraction of everything that he's put into the company and that he's achieved for it to grow it into the. I mean, it's not a one-man project, but to be the forerunner, to be the head guy, to represent, and I think he truly enjoyed doing the presentations, showing off these games. He wasn't looking at the greens alone. It wasn't just about that. He, at heart, is a gamer as well. So it's just great to see. If we could see more dedication like that in the video game industry, that would be phenomenal.
I mean, to speak to that, I mean, even just from the gamer side of it, just as the type of human being he was, this is a guy who took a pay cut as CEO when Nintendo was in trouble so people could keep their jobs. I mean, how often do you see that in this day and age?
No, you don't. You don't.
Not in America, at least.
No, in America, you fire people so that your bonus stays whole, typically.
Exactly. I mean, supposedly it's a little bit, I don't want to say commonplace, but it happens a little bit more frequently over in Japan, but still, it's one of those things he didn't have to do it, and it wasn't just a minor pay cut. He took half of his pay.
Yeah, massive.
I mean, that's amazing.
It truly is. What a guy. And with that being said, who's next? Who's next to take the reign? I mean, I'm gonna go around and see what you guys think. Who you guys think are gonna take over? I'm gonna shoot it over to you, Mike.
Well, to be honest, I don't really know too many names in the corporate structure of Nintendo, so I'm not really going to throw a speculation of who's out there. I wonder personally, though, how the next person's philosophy is going to affect Nintendo. Here's a guy who had this game development principle. If we do get a more, black and red guy, someone more concerned about the numbers, how is that going to affect how this company goes forward, how their philosophy is, and how they're going to do business?
Good point. Yeah. And I guess we could be a little lighthearted with it. I would like to say that Reggie could take over.
Bingo. That's what I'm talking about.
I mean, he's already over with us. He's got the "my body is ready" little thing going on.
Yeah.
And but can we get him over everywhere outside of the U.S., especially with the Japanese audience?
No. No way. And that's all that matters. I put him up there as my vote too, but there's no way. The point was made that Nintendo's stuck in their ways. I think one of the ways they're stuck in their ways is we will never have a non-Japanese person running the company.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a miracle on its own to have Iwata be the head of the company because it was a family-owned company. So the fact that he was the first person to take the reins, I mean, I think that's great.
Yeah, I don't see a guy from the Bronx all of a sudden going to Tokyo or Kyoto and running Nintendo.
He will have a translator translating for him saying, "I'm here to kick ass and take names."
Might that help, though? I mean, even if not a non-Japanese person at the helm, wouldn't it help to have, let's just say, a Westerner broadly, or let's just say that. I'm trying to be politically correct, but
yeah.
Somebody from outside Japan, at least as an equal or a right-hand man or woman to the new boss?
I mean, from my perspective, I think I can speak for us. I wouldn't really be opposed to it. It's just, could they be taken seriously is the biggest thing. It's all about that cultural stance, and yeah, we can try to keep it PC, but there's no other way to put it. They just don't want a gaijin in office. I mean,
and that's an easy position to hold on to when you go and dive in your Scrooge McDuck money pit every night. You're like, we've been okay. We don't really need to bring in a gaijin here to run the company.
But honestly, they really do have enough to stay afloat for a while. So any of you naysayers saying that it's going to go downhill from here, just stop already. What about you, Greg? Do you have any speculation as to what can be held for the future of Nintendo, or who could take reign?
Well, I'm going to take the easy way out. I don't think it's going to be Miyamoto because he said before he doesn't want to do it. So I'm just going to go with the other side of the coin that is currently running the company, and I'm going to butcher his name, and I'm so sorry. Genyo Takeda.
Oh, and do you have any insight as to why or what he can bring to the company?
Well, he's been there for 43 years. He's been with Nintendo for a long time, and according to an article I saw on Polygon, he's basically Nintendo's very first game designer. So he seems like an ideal person to kind of pick up where Iwata unfortunately left off. And I could see him having Miyamoto as kind of that right-hand man, and maybe not having, the Western influence to it, but still having somebody, two people, in fact, that actually seem to care quite a bit about keeping Nintendo, the way that we all know and love it as.
Great point, great point. And I heard the rumblings of Miyamoto, but I don't. At first, when I heard that, I thought age would have been a factor because he's a few years older than Iwata. But I don't think that's the case because there's been, Yamaguchi was in there until I think it's 80s or 90s. So
yeah.
But again, I believe Mike, you said that he's just not you and you, Greg, that. It's just Miyamoto is not willing to take upon that position at this time.
And nothing says that he just because it worked with Iwata, Miyamoto might not have that business mind. I think he's an incredibly creative person, and we all would agree that he's a master, but he might not want to deal with that. That might not be his forte. I think being down there, creating games, creating characters, that's really what he's good at. That's what he should stick doing. And I don't want him getting bogged down with that anyway, because I want him finishing Zelda so I can play it.
Don't we all? Real quick, I want to go over maybe around the room, what were your personal favorite achievement that Iwata has accomplished for the company? I'll kick it off to you, Tom.
If I have my history right, and I know this probably took place under his tenure, even if he wasn't himself the person delivering it, Nintendo really sold me on the Wii, not the Wii U, but the original Wii before it even came out, just through their rhetoric, just through talking about how they were going to expand the video game market by doing novel new stuff. At first I thought, everybody says that, we're going to revolutionize gaming with more RAM and a bigger processor and blah, blah. But love it or hate it, or maybe you got sick of it, the Wii was something completely different. And it was so compelling that everybody else tried their own motion gimmicks to try to keep up.
And it didn't work out for them.
It didn't work out for them, but I distinctly remember them saying, we are going to grow the video game market. And I at that time I remember thinking it was kind of an established market. It would grow incrementally, but what do you mean you're going to grow it? They did. They had this crazy unqualified success with the Wii, and they brought in all these non-gaming households, and they all played Wii bowling, and that was pretty much it. But to me, I wish I should have gone back and confirmed that he was the one delivering the messages in those keynotes and so on. But the delivery of that message under his tenure, if not by him directly, was probably that's a success by any measure.
I believe he did too, because I vaguely remember his deliverance of showing physically the Wii itself, and so which got a quite the reception. So that's I like that. That's a good achievement. What about you, Greg? Maybe you have a possible favorite achievement that he's accomplished?
My favorite, just because I've had the most experience with it, would probably be the creation of Super Smash Brothers. And bringing that franchise from just something that he drew out on a napkin, so to speak, taking that from just an idea and expanding it to this game that is now, one of probably the more popular esports in our day.
Yeah, recently becoming, because it wasn't always the case. It was usually other competitive fighting games, but they even recognized Melee as one of the top contenders now. What about you, Mike? Do you have a personal favorite achievement?
I'm gonna go with the DS. I mean, I was a big Game Boy fan back in the day, and that was really the last handheld. I had a Game Gear, but I didn't play it too much. So the Game Boy was the one I was primarily spent. I didn't have a handheld really back up until the DS came out. That's the one that got me back into handheld gaming, and that's the only one I even still have to this day. I've never dipped into the Sony incarnations, and that was it saved the company in a lot of ways. The GameCube was a little bit of a disappointment that came out, and that thing brought the company back. But even on the Game Boy, I mean, to tie in another one, two of my favorite games were the Kirby games. The second one, Kirby's Adventure, where you have like the hamster and all the different characters you can ride. So he's definitely touched me on the handheld side of it.
That's excellent. And you know what? That was going to be my pick as well. Like, I mean, not even just from a business standpoint, but just the true innovation and like still holding strong even after like Sony tried to dive into the market. I mean, I still love my Vita, don't get me wrong, but
me too.
I don't want to stray away. And even with mobile gaming being as strong as it is, even stronger in Japan than it is here, like it's dominating. But the DS, Nintendo's handheld, still has a place in the gaming world, and the strongest it's the strongest. You can throw out as much 99-cent games as you want on the mobile. When you get that true quality of $35 and up, like you just can't deny it. And there's just great franchises, and that's the thing. Like, it's only on Nintendo. That, I mean, that's always been a say, but it's the truth. That's been their bread and butter now. Like, I would even say more so than the home consoles for a long time. So.
You mentioned mobile gaming. There's another area. I mean, the Nintendo's recent push into mobile gaming was, started by Iwata. That was his idea. I mean, That was one of his last moves.
Mm-hmm. So even after his time, he's still been able to put a influential touch into Nintendo before he's passed. So I mean, on that note, I think we all had some really great points to make about Iwata and his history in the company. Hopefully, whoever takes on the reins next could really hold up, because he really set the standard high as far as like what to look forward to in a president of a successful video game company. And on that note, go ahead and close the show. If you liked this video, you can go ahead and comment, subscribe. Tom, do you have any plugs?
Check out nerdstravaganza.com, the Nerdstravaganza podcast, where we talk about a broad range of topics.
Excellent. That's what I like to hear. And check out the links below in the description for gamerslife.guru and the Tencent Gaming Facebook. And feel free to follow the Twitters respectively as well. And on that note, folks, to the Iwata tribute, we brought this episode to you, and may the Triforce be with you.